Hey mages, welcome to today's top 10 most expensive current cards in Standard, Dominaria United Standard. Now these are going to be some really cool cards. It's good to find out the price of some cards. They might be just sitting in your collection and you didn't know they had a bit of value, that potentially you could just then trade off with your friends and maybe get some cards that you do want. Also, for people that just love cracking packs, it's good to know where the value is as well. Now there is going to be an honourable mention straight up before we get to the list, and it is the banned card. It's Meat Hut Massacre. Now this is still over $50 at the time of recording this. It's banned in Standard, so it's not going to be in this list because you literally can't play it, of course, but you can play it in other formats, and still, while those packs have this in there, it's a good card to pull. So we're going to start off with the lowest price card and obviously reach to the number one most expensive card, and we're starting with Paragon. This is from one of the newer sets. It is 2 and double white for a 3/4 creature angel. It's flying, of course. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land card from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana 3 or less from your graveyard. Now this is definitely was one of my favourite cards and still is to be played because mana value 3 or less currently in Standard, you've got a lot of sweet cards to play with their wedding announcement. You know, there's some really good cards. I'm just thinking of that one off the top of my head that I love. Obviously you can recursion if opponents do like to kill that. That is a cool card to bring back, but you're talking any permanent spell as well. So it could be a Planeswalker. We got 3 mana Planeswalkers like Liliana in Standard at the moment. There's lots of different things that you can play with this. If you do, it gains when this permanent is put into graveyard from battlefield, exile it, and you gain 2 life. So you get this 3/4 flyer that's not legendary either, which is super special about this. Has flying, so has evasion, and has one of the coolest effects for me currently in Standard. And at $15.90, it's probably a bit of a steal. Next card is a card that is so heavily played, and I thought it might have got banned with the Meat Hook. It is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Now, this is a card that you see in multiple different decks. Mono red, you see him in Grixis, you see it in Is It loads, because for 3 mana, you create a 2/2 Goblin Shaman that can attack and create a treasure token, so it helps you in multicolored decks. Lore counter 2, discard up to 2 cards. If you do, draw that many cards. And the exile 3 is then it flips over to this hasty Goblin Shaman, reflection of Kiki Jiki. Now, if you know Kiki Jiki from other formats like Modern, this isn't probably quite as good, but it's still decent. It doesn't have haste, but it's a 2/2, 1 tap, create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature you control. That gains haste. You have to sack at the end, but you can get some proper value when this flips over to Kiki, and it always, for me, it's the first thing I kill if I try to get, and obviously this is 3 mana as well, so it can have a bit of a recursion with Paragon, so there's a nice little Boros theme going on for those two, but yeah, this is a top card, and at $17.17, it's a sweet pickup. Next coming in, you see this in a couple of control decks. It's $17.79. It's Toxriel the Corrosive. Now, this is probably holding a little bit of value because even though it's 7 mana, it's a cool commander. So this is why some of these cards in Standard have a slightly higher price. You might not think you see them, but if perhaps you don't play commander and you're not into control decks or anything like that, if you've got this sitting there at nearly $18, this could be a good card for you to trade. It's an expensive card. It's a 7/7 for 7. It's massive. It has a cool effect. It's a slug horror, so it's a cool creature type as well. Beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Those slime counters are -1/1 counters, so for each slime counter, you could potentially wipe a board, kill a board, or just shrink creatures down of your opponents. Whenever a creature you don't control with a slime counter on it dies, you get to create a slug token, and you can also play Dimir colours to sacrifice a slug and draw a card. So as you can see, this would be a really good commander. You can play Dimir colours because it does have the Dimir effect in there as well that you can pay for. So at 7 mana, there's plenty of ramping. Commander still very good. Standard, I like it. Control finisher, very nice for Dimir. So all in all, a cool creature. Next up is a big green stompy creature, 4 triple green for Cultivator Colossus, and this is $18. It has trample, its power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control. Ends the battlefield, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. If you do, draw a card and then repeat the process. So great in any kind of landfall deck, and the trample is great because it will just stomp over anything. Obviously, this is a commander card that a lot of people are playing in, so some cards in Standard get their value from other formats, which is, like a lot of cards can do when you get new sets and, Standard cards. If they're popular in both formats, they, potentially Modern as well, that, it really does keep up the value of the current Standard cards, and Cultivator Colossus is it's no different to that. Big, stompy, can be absolutely huge, and certainly a good win con for green decks. Now we have a blue card, $19.96 is Ledger Shredder, a much hyped around card this was when this come out. It's a 1/3 flyer for 1 and a blue. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Ledger Shredder connives. So connives is draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. And what's important about this card is whenever a player, so can be your opponent as well, so your opponents can trigger the connive on this, you can trigger it yourself as well. It's a really good card to protect and just keep on the board. You've seen mono blue in Standard, it's quite an annoying deck, and this is one of the cards that really make it. So if you're playing in your FNMs on Friday night in your LGSs, expect to see a bit of mono blue. Ledger Shredder, good packs to pull with this. This is nearly a $20 card. Next up at $21.01 we have Timeless Lotus, 5 mana, enters as a battlefield tapped, but then you can add Wooburg, so you can tap it to add white, blue, black, red and green. Bit unfortunate this does enter tapped, but probably would just be, play 5, tap for 5 straight away, maybe a bit too strong. But seeing playing Commander, like I said, so which is what hypes up the value. I think there's been a couple of decks that have played it. There was a combo deck, I think, in Standard. Maybe you can let me know in the comments which that was. I do remember reading something about that, which is maybe what, made this see a bit of play. But generally, you don't see this much in Standard. But still, to keep a big value of over $20, I think is, it's pretty sweet. So if you've got these in your collection and you don't play it, trade it to something that you do want to play. Now to the top 4, and number 4 is the Wandering Emperor. This is around $27, and lucky me, when this set came out, I pulled a foil and it's still in my collection. I just haven't found a deck for it to play in. Obviously, if I played Standard and LGSs, I would, quite easily find this a deck. Oars of Control, Mono White, anything that plays those sort of decks, Esper Control. The Wandering Emperor is such a good, it has Planeswalker, it has Flash. Put it in there, you can then -2 and it still won't die. You can exile a tapped target, tapped creature, you then gain 2 life. You can just put a blocker in with the -1, creating a samurai token, and then you can +1/1, maybe you're blocking, you can flash this in there, get a bit of first strike and kill a creature on blocks as well. The Wandering Emperor for 4 mana is probably, it's definitely one of the coolest white planeswalkers that we've seen in Standard for a long time. My other favourite used to be Elsbreth Sun's Champion back in Theros days, but this for me, Wandering Emperor is really good, and I can see why it's holding such a good price. Coming at number 3, it's the only land, and this was certainly the best land, I think, out of the cycle of legendary lands that came from this set. Besiege, who endures. Add 1. Now these, all the different colours had channel. This one is pay 2, discard the Besiege, destroy target artifact, enchantment or non-basic land opponent controls. That player may search the library for a land card with basic land type. The ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control, so potentially will cost 1 green mana, which is amazing. This is a card that sees play in all manner of different formats, and Standard, any green deck will run this. There's a lot of artifacts and especially a lot of enchantments in recent Standard, which is why this card is heavily played in any mixtures of combination gold guard, anything. You will always run 1 or 2 Besiege you in there. Now at $27.99, it's not a cheap land without a doubt, especially for a Standard land, but obviously that is because it's so good. And I really would, the price of this one, I think it first came out was around $45, $50. So it has dropped a bit, but still holding a very, very good price. Next up was the much needed reprint at $33.95 now. And that's probably half the price it used to be before reprint. Liliana of the Veil, 3 mana planeswalker, get it back with Sarah. This is a card that is good in control strategies, good in discard strategies, just an all, it's an iconic planeswalker, and they tested the water, put it back in Standard, and I think it's been okay. I don't think it's been, mono black as a deck has been very oppressive, but this is seen playing in a few different decks, quite a few Rakdos decks as well. I like this, mixing it in with Op Nicholas and going for the discard theme myself. +1, each player discards a card, -2, target player sacks a creature. Then the -6 is separate all permanents target player controls into 2 piles. That player sacrifices all permanents in the pile of their choice. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do that in Standard, but I've done it multiple times now, and it's so fun to do. Splitting up their lands with their best stuff, saying, right, you can have no lands and just try and win with what you got on the board. It's hilarious. Now, $34 nearly, $33.95 is still quite an expensive card, but for what this card was and how, it's played in Modern and all different kinds of, probably was played in Legacy as well, I'm assuming, in its time. It may be still. Not so much a commander card, but still very prevalent, as mono black is still good in Standard. And yeah, I think if you've got this in your collection, maybe keep hold of them. We probably won't see another reprint for quite a while, so could possibly go back up as well. But if mono black or that is not your thing, trade it away and sell it for a good bit of profit. So the number one card, and you're seeing a theme here because of the current best deck in Standard, was mono black for quite a while, even with Meat Hook Massacre, and this is Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Oh, what a card. Thank God this is legendary, because it would just be broken even more. 4/5 for 4 mana. Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Any card drawing mono blue mages or anything like that just hates seeing this card, because they want to draw cards, and it pains them so much. They could literally die on the spot from a Sheoldred. It can win so many games without even attacking, just by being on the field. It gets you back into games as well. And at $51.61, it is the most expensive current card in Standard. Even with Meat Hook banned, is still below this. But that's taken a little drop. But, this is still an amazing card. When they banned Meat Hook, I was like really sad, because I did play him on my black, but I was like, just keep Sheoldred in. And I knew they wouldn't get rid of Sheoldred because it's a brand new set. So I thought, they're definitely going to leave this alone for a bit. It might go in the future, but for the moment, this is a great card. Now, it does get played in Commander. It's going to be a really good Commander itself, so the price may drop a touch. I think it's obviously going to have to drop a bit from the $51 it is, but it's still going to be a card that is, fairly highly priced. But if you don't play Commander and you've got these in your collection, it could be a good time to sell, because it is $51. That's a lot of money. You can get a lot of good cards. You can pick yourself up a Serra Paragon and a Fable, and possibly even a Cultivator Colossus for the price of just this one card. So you can get, that's just an example. You can get multiple good cards if you sold this. But for me, I've not pulled one in packs yet, and that's really annoyed me, because I play Sizan in Commander and I just wanted one of these, but I haven't pulled one in paper yet. Got the playset on Arena, but that doesn't really help me. But yeah, Sheoldred, number one most expensive card currently in Standard. So that's the top 10 most expensive cards currently in Standard, with an honourable mention of the Meat Hook Massacre, ranging from $15.90 with a Serra up to the $51.61 of Sheoldred, and a lot of great cards in between. But as you can see, there's a lot of money still in Standard, especially in the newer sets like Dominaria United, where cards like Sheoldred came. There's still quite a bit of money in there, and Besiege still always going to be keeping its price. Some cards will obviously drop, but like I said before, if you've got Standard cards going into Commander and maybe other formats like Modern or anything like that, they do tend to hold their value. Let me know of any of these cards. Did they surprise you with the price? Have you got this in your collection? Now you're going to pass them on. Now you know the price. Let me know in the comments below. Hope you've enjoyed today's little finance video. Thank you to my Patreons, and thank you to everyone that likes and watches the videos. I really do appreciate that. Everyone that leaves me comments. But you lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.